Hey guys, so here we are, part 3 of my look at the Doctor Strange from the 70s. This episode is issue 10, 11, 12, and 13. And as you can see, it's a story with a character whose design has always really impressed me, and that's Eternity. I just have always loved the images that I've seen of him, especially on a cover like this, for example. Just how he is kind of the universe, and you just get kind of hints at a person, and it's done really well on this cover with just the red background there to really make him stand out. And right away, I guess one of the first things I'll start with is the artwork, and while it works fairly well on the cover here with the purple, when I got into this story, the first time that we see him really threw me. I couldn't, it took me a moment. I mean, it's not like I stared at it for minutes at a time, but it took me a moment to see what the hell I was looking at right there, and then finally realized that I was looking at Eternity. Poorly, I don't know, for me, poorly done. I don't think the background does anything for it. I don't think the skyline does anything for it. It really doesn't make it pop. And again, I go back to the Ditko stuff where you do see Eternity and his backgrounds and just his scope of panels. A lot more sparse. This is really busy, and it's something that, you know, like I said, right at that moment didn't really strike me as anything. Thankfully, it did change. Like, I love this page. He stands out really well there. I enjoy these panels as well on this page. I thought that worked pretty well with the colors. So not only is there density to everything, it's also the colors just didn't work. So the colorist on this particular issue was a new guy, Al Wenzel. So now that I've got that out of the way, we'll start here. So Doctor Strange number 10, October 1975. Englehart still author, Collins still the artist. I think it's Frank Chiaramonte on inks, John Orzechowski letters, Al Wenzel on colors, and this is the first issue. Now it's Marv Wolfman as the editor. So the one thing that kind of got to me about this entire storyline is how, I don't know, just how meaty a prospect this is, just reading this. It's hard to kind of put yourself in the time of when this came out, you know, 75. And what it meant in comics. I can't really grasp it. Obviously it was popular because this really went on, and you know, he got his own title based on the popularity of Doctor Strange from Strange Tales. Granted, again, that was a Stan Lee, Ditko kind of thing, and this is a different entity altogether, but I mean, this lasted for quite a while, so there must have been a lot of people reading it. Reading them back to back. I just finished reading 11, 12, and 13 back to back. Even back to back, it's really dense, and it's not always as clear as to what's going on. I wasn't clear on a certain couple of points. I had to go back and kind of look again, and even doing so again, I wasn't 100% clear because it's a very wordy comic. That said, I can't imagine if you're waiting. Number 10 was October, number 11 came out in December, so you're waiting 2 months between issues, trying to keep track of a storyline that's pretty dense. I can't really imagine what that would have been like. So in this issue, now that we've talked about a bit about that, just looking at my notes here, this first one is called Alone Against Eternity. We find out that the Doctor has been looking after Baron Mordo, who he has up in a room and he's been looking after him because his mind has been completely blown. He's been in my care for over a year. Until now, he's been stupefied, his mind an utter blank, and I took it upon myself to keep him alive. His consciousness was unable to maintain its balance when he and I saw God, which we talked about in the first video that happened in Marvel Premiere, number 14 there. So the Baron has just been isolated in this room, his mind completely blown from his experience of seeing God. I thought that was kind of entertaining. And he kind of relives that, and then eventually Eternity appears to him to warn him of the end of the world, Ragnarok, everything, whatever, however you want to refer to it as. On his journeys going to confront Eternity, he runs across Nightmare just for a moment, and thinks that he's in the Baron's mind, and kind of pays Nightmare no mind. So he finally confronts Eternity, where he hears the end of your world. Call it Twilight of the Gods, call it Ragnarok, call it Judgment Day. You have always known in your soul it would come, and it has. So he's here to warn him that humanity's time has come, and the Doctor is going to save humanity, because as far as he's not afraid of death, he still feels that humanity has a chance, and he wants to stick up for them. I mean, just, you know, these pages work really, really well, I think. I love the kind of smaller panels here. I love this use of the white space and everything. I think these pages work incredibly well. These colors are really nice. So when he did nail it, he nailed it. I don't know what happened on that first page where we first see him, but pages like that really... And I mean, the bottom line with a lot of these stories of Doctor Strange, the reason why people want to read them, and the reason why I was interested in it, was all this psychedelic kind of imagery and all this use of these colors. And they're not the prettiest colors by any stretch. You know, in there we're seeing some greens and some yellows, and even with his blue and red, it still is awash with these purples and greens and just kind of gross colors, but it works really well. So I imagine that was kind of a draw for a lot of people, as well as this whole metaphysical kind of wordy interplay. Eternity basically tells him, how are you going to save humanity when you cannot even overcome yourself? And he's going to put him face to face with previous versions of the Doctor, when he was a surgeon, when he injured his hand and became an alcoholic, when he turned into this the masked master of the mystical arts, and then when he was kind of himself. Now these versions I don't know. I don't know too much about these stories. It's something that I'll do a bit of reading into and find out a little more, but so that basically ends the first one, and I liked it. It was a great start, especially after my disappointment in the last story arc. This one is back to being kind of, with this first issue, it's back to being a focus on the Doctor, and things are the vision is a little more singular, as opposed to trying to encompass a lot of different worlds. So then we're at December 1975, issue 11. The only change in talent on this is Tom Palmer is back on inks and color. And according to my notes here, last time we saw him was in issue 8. So after a little bit of a break, he's back. Everybody else is the same. So as strong as that one was, this one didn't really do anything for me. It was back to... I just wasn't quite clear of what was going on. I wasn't quite clear of why he was sent to face himself. This is where my kind of back and forth went. I wasn't quite clear on why the world was ending. And I didn't, because I didn't really know what humanity had done. There was talk of humanity is kind of in touch with everybody else too much, so individuals are more critical on themselves. Does that mean that he saw that there was no room for growth anymore, so he was calling it quits? It was just a bit confusing. And then him facing these other versions of himself, who are all waiting around for the Red Death, who they worship, and not wanting any part of our Doctor in their world. Even so far as one of the Doctors is in a Richard Nixon mask, and he's the one that's in control. I have a feeling that, you know, some of this kind of stuff might translate more if you were in the world at this time period, you know. I just watched a Robert Altman movie, and it was called The Long Goodbye, and it was filmed in the 70s, and in this movie there's a lot of kind of leftover hippies. There's some gangsters, there's some tough guys, there's some writers, there's our main character who's kind of awoken from the 50s, so to speak. And in the documentary about it, he's talking about how the 70s was a strange time, and how people were all into experimenting with all different kinds of things. It was kind of a lost time where stragglers from other time periods were, and this sort of thing. And it seems that some of that is in here as well, as far as they really don't like this Doctor because he looks weird, he practices magic, they don't really know how to take him, and everything is kind of coming to a head at once. So we kind of continue stumbling through this issue, is the best way to put it. Nothing really struck me in it at all. He comes face to face with a drunken version of himself down in this cell in the basement, and they're going to escape. This other version of himself tries to kill him. Clea's mind joins with him for a moment to warn him, and warns him just in time. Sometimes I'm looking at the comic and not looking at the camera. Sorry about that. So here we have that. There we go. It seems to have settled down. I think the color was flashing there a little. Warns him just before he gets killed. He turns around, knocks the guy out, eventually escapes this dungeon and this prison, and goes back to confront these other Doctors, who then are met by their Red Death Lord, who kind of causes them all to, I don't know, die, pass out. Most of them. Reveals that he's got other masks. The mask of comedy. When the last time we met, I wore the mask of infinity. Death is a masked Doctor Strange, and he bids him goodbye. Then we're back to talking to Eternity, and the Doctor tries to convince him that, you know, if I have this magic, I can save the world. Even just talking about this issue, I'm out of breath. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it borders on, is this really a deep kind of conversation that we're having here in this issue, or is it just people who are writing, they're a little full of themselves and a little full of shit, you know? Taking us down this journey because, hey, look how deep we are, and look how, you know, this one really struck me like that, so it didn't sit well with me. Yeah. But luckily, with number 12, it kind of got back into line. Number 12, February 1976. The only difference on this one is Tom Palmer is listed doing ink, art, and color. So, I don't know if Gene had a hard time keeping up or what happened there. I didn't really notice a drastic art style change, so maybe he just did a couple of panels. I'm not really sure. Again, nice layouts on this page. I like the way this page is. And one thing that I noticed about this book too is the flow of the text and stuff, just coming down around here, creep it up around this way and down there, and then you can kind of come back and read these 3 panels down in the corner. I like the way, even though it throws me every once in a while, I do like the way that's laid out. So there's mention of the Hulk number 126 in this issue, which I do not have, and apparently it was one of the last, or the last version, the last appearance rather, of this masked Doctor when he appeared like this. So this one, he comes face to face with the Ancient One, who is trying to impart some wisdom on him, telling him that, you know, there's all different religions and ancient wisdoms that embrace death. They all recognize death. This is just something that has to happen. You can't beat eternity, that you don't stand a chance. Give up. The Doctor refuses to give up. The Ancient One gets angry and wants to leave. The Doctor says, "You're not going to leave, I'm going to take control and you're going to stay and work this out with me." So they have a minor battle where the Doctor tries to enter into the mind of the Ancient One and is thrown out, and realizes that this Ancient One is not a construct. It's possibly actually him, and he's in a kind of consciousness state that he's never experienced before. So the Ancient One is really advanced since the last time they saw each other. Skip ahead to this battle, which isn't of much consequence, to be honest. Just another version of himself, basically. And it leads us to Baron Mordo, who has kind of combined minds with another kind of ancient Genghis, who's been deemed insane, who we've seen in a previous issue. Can't remember off the top of my head which issue that was. And they come down and kind of take over this other Strange's body to fight Doctor Strange and cause him a lot of harm, because his power has really advanced. Clea tries to help, and to no avail. The Earth gets destroyed, and we're assured here, make no mistake, this was the real Earth. But then how is it that you remain? You want answers, you want solutions, and you'll find them in Doctor Strange number 13. So the world has been destroyed, and why are we still here if the world has been destroyed? Yeah, so that ends that one. I thought I had a thread there that's now gone. Anyway, moving on to the last issue. Oh yeah, just about spoilers and things. That was what I was going to touch on. Obviously, I just showed you the end of that issue. I said so in one of the other videos. It might have been the first video. As I'm going through this, it's going to be spoiler alert, spoiler alert. I mean, again, just to reiterate that I think the big thing with this series is just the journey of this character, and not so much the spoilers and stuff. So, just so you know, I will be talking about how this all came to be here quickly. April 1976, all the same creators as the previous issue. Tom Palmer is just listed as inks and colors in this one, no art on this one from him, and it's called Planet Earth is No More. There's also talk in this Doctor Strange number 180 to 182, and it's a story with Nightmare, who tried to capture eternity, apparently, in that specific storyline. So Planet Earth is no more, so what are we going to do? He realizes that he did see a Nightmare in the first issue of this arc there, so he's going to try to make contact and go to Nightmare's world, which he does, and after Nightmare sends a little demon after him to test the Doctor and see how much power he has, he makes himself known to him. They battle very minorly, and the Doctor easily wins the battle. Love these kind of panels as well. That was the other thing was there. Yeah, this page really stood out to me as well, too. Not taking up the full page. The kind of wedge shapes of those ones, I really dug those as well. So Nightmare is of no consequence to him in this battle, and he knows that there's something else going on. He has a suspicion, and he finds out that he's possibly right. What's this big orb? Nightmare has captured eternity, and kind of the cop-out ending to this is we have been living in Eternity's nightmare. So basically, Eternity has been dreaming of all this. Now, is that a complete cop-out? No, it's not, because planet Earth is still destroyed. Again, more fantastic drawings of Eternity there. Planet Earth is still destroyed, and there's nothing he's going to do about it. That's just the way that it is. Doctor Strange begs him that we deserve another chance and to help him turn back time. He refuses again and starts to lash out at Doctor, showing him just the extent of his power. It can turn him into like a little ridiculous looking creature like this. The Doctor is trying to figure out what he's going to do. Eternity gets really pissed off, and at the last moment the Ancient One reveals himself and grabs Eternity's hand, and then we see the full impact of the Ancient One, that he is really this enormous entity now in the world, which is pretty incredible reveal. I thought I really enjoyed that quite a bit, that he's achieved this kind of higher state where he can battle Eternity one-on-one. It's pretty fantastic. He keeps him at bay. Eternity concedes and says what he's going to do is he's going to create another Earth and basically fast forward it through time to moments before the end of our Earth as we knew it. The only difference is he will not create a second Doctor Strange. And that's kind of how he leaves it. And we also find out that this was yet another test in the Doctor's journey to become the Sorcerer Supreme. The first being overcoming death. This one to be appreciative of life. So, not a horrible ending, a bit of a cop-out-ish when you're dealing with, hey, look at that, I woke up and it was all a dream. But still, interesting enough, even though it had its stutters. The next video will be starting on this issue right here. Get that glare out of there. There we go. Doctor Strange number 14. It's a crossover with Tomb of Dracula. Tomb of Dracula 42, 43, and 44. And I know a place in town where they have a pretty good backlog of Tomb of Dracula, so I'm going to try to get those 3 issues before I start reading this one. So the next review, I mean, depends on when I put this one up. The next review will be a little while because I want to get onto that first. So there we go. Part 3 of the look at Doctor Strange. I hope you liked it. Yeah, I mean, feel free to give me comments or send me messages if things weren't necessarily clear. Like I said, that whole kind of arc really was a tiny bit confusing to me at parts, and it really felt like there was a lot again. It's a different way of reading comics, this story. Yeah, I mean, you know, don't want to get all pretentious about it because it's nothing more fantastic. It's still a comic book, and it still has some incredible stuff in it. But it's definitely meatier than a lot of the stuff I've read before, you know, and a lot of the stuff that's kind of goes on with superhero books, which makes it which makes it interesting to read, but it also makes it a little challenging for sure, and you know, really takes a lot of focus. So I hope I was able to streamline some of my thoughts for you. Alright, that's it. I'm going to stop talking. See you later.